Penn State suffers its first loss of the season at the hands of Ohio State. It's another loss in a big game for James Franklin as the Nittany Lions offense falters and the defense can't come up with a big stop at the end of the game. We break down what went wrong for Penn State. Nittany Nation Overtime is next.
Hey, what I'm doing, hey, getting right to it. Yeah, the money is talking, I'm flowing, it's coming in just how I drew it. Yeah, you know what it is. Hey, we doing it big. Look up, there is no limit, no, we cannot settle for this. Can't stop, nah, won't stop. Yeah, it's been on live. You don't believe it, just watch.
Welcome into another edition of Nittany Nation Overtime. I'm your host, Ryan Risky. I'm joined by the Nit Wits, as always, Mark Brennan, Neil Rudel, and former Penn State wide receiver Joe Nastasi. And guys, another year, another loss to Ohio State.
Just real frustrating in the red zone particularly. They had the ball at the 5 twice to get 0 points out of it. To me, Tyler Warren, you've kind of like showed him off all year with different things, that where he's lining up, he's taking snaps, he's catching the ball, he's running the. I didn't understand down, with 5 minutes to go, why he wasn't in a direct snap situation at least once, and then maybe if it didn't work with him the first time, let him throw a pop pass. Somebody would have been wide open. I don't think it's that complicated.
Yeah, kind of rewind to 2018, when you have a 4th and 5 against Ohio State, and you run Miles Sanders when Trace McSorley had like 700 or 800 yards. I'm joking, it wasn't quite that many, but go to your best player. I mean, and that's typically in these games, they're not going to their best player in the clutch, and that's what you have to do. To me, listen, we know at the college football playoff, there's a measure of wiggle room that Penn State has. But this, to me, more reflects on James Franklin. I mean, sooner or later, you have to be able to get over this hump, and to be 1-10 against this team, to me, that's the toughest thing about this game is for James Franklin, because the team could bounce back from this, and he could bounce back from it, but it's going to be incumbent on him to make sure this team gets to the playoff and does well in the playoff now.
Yeah, you could go through, there's a laundry list of boxes you could check on this game. The crazy thing about it is I don't think it was the most talented Ohio State team we've faced. But even with all the mistakes and everything we did, it felt a little bit more to me that we lost it as opposed to Ohio State winning it. In years past, we've played really well and just come up short. This year, I feel like that we lost it, and again, you could go down the laundry list of mistakes. I know we made a lot of great plays, and a lot of guys played well at times. It was a little bit of lightning in a bottle, but again, at the end of the day, it felt like that was our loss, not their win.
Kotelnicki has been so creative, and that was one of the other things that was disappointing. I think there was a lot of anticipation of what is he going to do in a big moment. I guess we found out, but I mean, here they are, they're running Vega, a 375-pound guard into the middle. He didn't really block anybody. Instead of spreading anything out, you're kind of playing electric football in the clutch with this big mass for 3 straight times. Yeah. So that was really disappointing.
That one was a little bit, just from a formation standpoint. It was, we would call that what would be a gimmick formation. And we did it 3 straight. Again, I had referenced before about it. The 4th down play was a first down play. That's if you catch them, you've got that easier throw to the flat, but it's kind of a him or nobody. You're throwing that ball away, but obviously on 4th down, you don't have that option.
Big picture, for AK, I think you have to give him just a little bit of. I don't want to say an excuse, but this was his first time operating in a game of this magnitude. So hopefully he's able to learn from it. As I said before, this has been a pattern, though, with the rest of the staff. So does he learn from it? The offense in general, you can't score 6 points against Ohio State and expect to win.
And these performances are what got Mike Yurcich fired last year.
Right, and you go back to Wisconsin, and they had only 21 points in that game, even though they put up all those first downs and all those yards. So they have to take a step back and figure out what's not working here. But I'm not completely down on AK.
Right.
Not really good in this game, but I think this is a situation where you have a coach who hopefully can learn from it.
Yeah, but I mean, like you say, the big picture, I mean, how many coordinators can you cycle through?
That's why
you're
my
James
point,
Franklin.
yeah.
I mean, who's next to be blamed? I mean, you've had multiple, I think 4 or 5 offensive coordinators. At least 3 didn't leave on their own accord. So that's a problem.
Well, not everybody wants to hear it, but I feel like you're going to have to really go out and really spend the money on some skill guys to get down the field. I mean, we don't have, like right now you're watching, it seems like we're running out of space on the field. You play against Ohio State or a team and you've got full clamp down and you're squeezing out play after play. You don't want to have to gimmick your way down the field. Yes, it's good to have that creativity, creative alignments and things like that, but you want to have some guys that can blow the lid off here and there. And unfortunately, we haven't been able to do that, and it's really hurting us being able to stretch the field vertically.
Joe, I'm glad you're here tonight because the other red zone failure.
Can I erase this real quick?
Was the play to Wallace at the end of the first half, which was really, I think, the biggest play in the game.
He had a good release.
Yeah, you're a receiver.
Yeah.
He's got to pull that in, right?
Yeah, well, so he makes a really good play getting to that point, okay, because he had a double move on the guy, he got held and made the catch. Felt like the way they were pressing, they were playing a lot of zero coverage. You felt like we should have done that here and there a little bit, just taking those shots to keep them honest on those edges and give those guys a chance. That play right there, I mean, 99 out of 100, you can't make that interception. So it's my guy or nobody. He ends up, if the ball bounces back to him again. There's one of those ones. Okay, that happens. The other goal line stand happens, and you still have a chance to go 3 and out and win that game. So what I'm saying is, I think we had all the opportunity to win and to capitalize, and we didn't capitalize on any of it.
To Joe's point, 5 games into the Big Ten season, wide receivers have 0 touchdown catches. Your best receivers are Tyler Warren, nothing wrong with that, but your second best receiver now is Nick Singleton. So this was a wild game, and we were talking about it before, Ryan, right? Your leading rusher is a tight end, and your leading receiver is a running back.
Yeah, that was
and
wild.
That's the bizarro world we're in, where they don't have receivers who can make big plays.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate. It's 2 years in a row. You just feel like Drew doesn't have that guy who can just make a play when he needs to make a play happen downfield.
Yeah.
Now, Ohio State, that guy made one of the great interceptions that you're ever going to see. Yep. And Ohio State made a ton of plays in the absolute clutch when they had to. I give them credit, but I think Penn State left a lot of plays on the field.
All right, guys. Well, obviously, unfortunately, the offense just didn't show up, and we kind of thought this year might be a little bit different, but we have to take a break right here. When we come back, we're going to dissect James Franklin's struggles against Ohio State.
You're watching Nittany Nation Overtime.
Welcome back into Nittany Nation Overtime. Ryan Risky, Mark Brennan, Neil Rudel, and former Penn State wide receiver Joe Nastasi joining me. And guys, James Franklin's now 1-10 against Ohio State. Just another gut-wrenching loss and just a litany of them.
It is, and there were some other things in that game that sort of symbolic. Lack of discipline under James. It's just you have 2 unsportsmanlikes in a row, and they're not the most blatant or obvious things, but they're penalties. And jumping off sides, that's another thing. They've been real penalized teams this year. But I don't like just how many times you see guys in a little taunting, guys in other opponents' faces, and there's a priority on that.
Well, and how many times in this series have we seen in the last 8 minutes where whatever it is, they just press every wrong button? And it's almost as if they're in a little bit of panic mode. I mean, and it's every game in this series that it happens. So many times they've been up.
Yeah.
This game they're up 10-0 early, but other games they've been up in the fourth quarter or the second half.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. It's just like when it feels like this game, and it's the ups and downs of these games, and we seem to, like you said, push the button at the wrong time. Like that penalty, was it much of a penalty? Like you said, no, but understand the situation. That's a third, and now you got them in a 4th down scenario. You're punting the ball. 2 plays later, they score. I mean, was it ticky-tack call? You call it that, but at the same time, that's part of the rule. You've got to understand it. You got to understand about the celebration. It almost cost us in Wisconsin because they got the kick from the 20. He did it again here, which our cover team did a great job in getting them inside the 30, which was crazy because you're kicking from the 20-yard line. Yeah, I mean, those are bad penalties. And again, I mean, they have to reel that in and understand the significance of the moment. And
even going back to the 1st and goal at the 3 at the end of the game, 3 straight runs don't get in. Then you have that failed play where Tyler Warren was the first option, except even in that point, there's 5.5 minutes left, and Ohio State's got the ball at the 1, and then 10 running plays later, they've run out the clock.
They've run their maligned offensive line at Ohio State, makeshift in this game, and yet they were sheer will that offensive line and those 2 running backs, especially Judkins, the kid that helped beat Penn State in the Peach Bowl, for God's sake.
Yeah.
What I didn't been beaten by this guy.
What I didn't like is, Franklin indicated that he thought the defense was impacted by the offense not getting the job done there, and to me that sends off an alarm. I mean, you need your defense in a game like that. You can't. If the offense struggles, great. The defense has to pick it up, and to its credit, for most of the game it did. But to know that you're going to get run after run after run, and that's what they did. They ran it 10 times, I think, for 59 yards before taking a knee.
Yeah, 4 first downs.
That just can't happen.
And Penn State had 3 timeouts when that happened too.
Yeah, it didn't matter because
and James lost his poise afterwards too. He was in the little fan interaction that, of course, in this social media world, went totally viral. I just don't. You can't expect your kids to keep their poise if you can't.
And then throwing it, you're letting students get under your skin too. I mean, and then, Penn State asks the fans to get ready to sing the alma mater with James Franklin. And the moment they said his name over the loudspeaker, people started booing, chanting "Fire Franklin." People were throwing things on the field reminiscent to the Michigan game last year.
Well, when you're making the amount of money that coaches are making now, and when players are making the amount of money they're making, this has become professional sports. I don't condone it, but you're going to have booing. Number one, I don't condone throwing stuff on the field. I definitely don't condone what that student did to Franklin. But to Neil's point, you need to have a thicker skin if you're that coach walking off the field. And you need to have people around you who are going to say, hey, James,
let's keep going. Yeah.
Get out of here. You may be emotional at this point, but we need to get you off the field.
Yeah, those are tough. And I mean, sometimes it's hard to explain the big picture and everything that happens. And, you're not there from Sunday to the next, Saturday for all the game prep and how much they put into it. But to everyone's point here is that they are basically professionals now. So this is going to come with the territory, and also the money is so, everyone understands the money now. Like, it's very public. The money that the players receive, the money that the coaches receive, these are high ticket, and people want big results, or that's just what it is. That's where it's at.
Can you throw out a couple of those stats, though? It's not as if Penn State was beating top 5 opponents left and right before Franklin got here.
I ran the number today. I mean, Joe was 13-34 against the top 5. I mean, measuring everybody against top 5 is like, well, what were you against the 27 Yankees? I mean, these are
what was he in the 2000s?
Well, they were like about 0 for their last 15. He was incredible at the height of the program in the 80s. He was 9-4. Against the top 5.
And that's when you're winning national titles.
But he started out, they were like 2-12, but he had already had 3 undefeated seasons under his belt. So he had built up a lot of cachet. So I know it's a high bar measuring it, and James can't get over the hump against Ohio State. I just don't think they've coached and played to their best in the big moments.
But if you're winning top 5 games, you are playing for titles. So like when you compare that, when you make that stat, because everyone's going to be 1 or 2 and most coaches are not winning top 5 games unless you're Georgia, Alabama, you're Saban, those guys, because they beat guys. When top 5 is a very elite club, so not make an excuse, just saying the reality is that if you're winning top 5, you're winning titles.
But even back then, James's teams have been generally really competitive in these games.
Correct.
Right. And there were a lot of games. Joe, you were part of where you go out to Ohio State, and it was pretty ugly.
We got whooped at home again with Michigan. Yeah, so I mean, again, the microscope, the social media, this all plays right into it because everyone has access to what guys. You never knew what Joe made. You never knew what
Well, he
a
was
lot of these
underpaid
coaches-
compared to
So was Joe.
So was I. I'm still waiting for courtesy.
Bedford County Pizza.
Well, no courtesy. I mean, I'm still waiting for my vehicles. But yeah,
Nobody
I mean,
ever booed Joe Nastasi off the field, I can tell you that.
Hey, yeah, they didn't know who I was.
Well, guys, obviously another disappointing loss, but we do want to look at the big picture, and we're going to do that when we come back. Don't go anywhere. Nittany Nation Overtime will return.
You're watching Nittany Nation Overtime.
Welcome back into Nittany Nation Overtime. Ryan Risky, joined by Mark Brennan, Neil Rudel, and former Penn State wide receiver Joe Nastasi. And guys, as gut-wrenching of a loss as it is, it's a different era of college football right now, because if Penn State wins out, which is realistic, and goes to 11-1, that very likely gets them into the college football playoff and puts them in a position to host a game in the first round.
Well, first of all, it would have been fun if we kept the cameras rolling before and during all the commercials, because there's been some good discussion. But no, to your point, Ryan, this is where it's incumbent on the coaching staff, and this is where, you know, Franklin has struggled in big games, but typically he's had teams ready to go after it. Not every single time, but this is where the players have to flush it. That's the word that Nick Singleton used, and I give Singleton credit. He came out and talked. Aller came out and talked. A lot of the key players came out and talked. This is a different era. And you still have everything there waiting for you if you can take care of business. So they're in take care of business mode at this point, because if they lose one more, they're in trouble because their strength of schedule.
Well, you know, James was upfront about it afterwards. He said, you know, we can't let this game beat us twice.
Right.
And that has happened after the Ohio State, some of their more disappointing losses, and it was reflected through the players. You know, Thomas was saying about, you know, when they unraveled and lost like 4 or 5 in a row that one year. I know it was maybe the COVID year. But I think it is an indication of leadership and the fiber of this team. It is a new era. These guys at times are more worried about, you know, or they're worried about the brand and some of the finances that is going on. And after you take that first loss, it could be a little different. So
I think this is what I think. I think now we've all been waiting for the playoff for this reason, right? Now you're not just done and guys are folding shop, you know, and they're done. So now financially, for you to play well after that kind of loss is beneficial to you individually and as the team, the brand, and everything. So now we have a better, like we said, a more of a pro-style teams, because these guys are not saying, well, I'm going to get ready for the draft. Because realistically, you could make as much money playing college football for a little while until you actually have an opportunity to go to pros. I think some of our guys made mistakes in the past doing that, where these guys are getting significant paychecks, and now you have an opportunity to go and show it again against Washington and then Purdue and Minnesota down the line. You know, so I think that keeps your team together. This is why the playoffs is great for college football, and this is where I think the money comes in base for the fans to have more excitement on your team going forward after, say, a loss like this.
Hey, something I liked after the game, I'm sorry, Ryan, but the press conferences were wrapping up, and we thought they were over, and in walks Nick Singleton. And to me, this is one of your big NIL guys. I'm sure he's disappointed, but he felt the need to come out there even though it was late, and sat there, and it wasn't an easy situation for him. But when a guy like that's still invested, and Aller's still invested, and everybody's still invested, that is the key to make sure these guys are still emotionally, you know, into what's going on. And I think with this new system, it allows you to do that.
Yes, correct.
yeah, and there's a guy that didn't get the ball down at the goal line. Couldn't have been real happy about that. So I give you credit.
You get a guy checking out, a leader checking out, you're in trouble. And teams, it'll happen. You see it with Michigan. They've got guys checked out. So you see it.
And I was going to say, even as frustrating as a loss as it is, you know, before the season, I think a lot of people would have been happy with 11-1 on the season. It's just the way you go and lose these games becomes the issue.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean,
What did you pick the team's record to be, Joe?
Well, I was doing that to try to get that 12-0. But yeah, I would agree with you. I mean, I think if you're sitting there saying, hey, you're not going to go play in the Big Ten championship game, but you still have that opportunity, you know, I would sign up for that.
Everybody raise your hand if you thought that Ohio State was going to beat Penn State in the preseason. I know I think Joe can't do it. I can't put that on him.
Did he pick 3 losses?
No, I think the majority of people
they were a ghost
looked
three,
at the schedule and said, "This is."
Right.
But to everybody's point, it just keeps happening, kind of in the same
Groundhog Day.
frustrating fashion.
Yeah, I got you.
Yep. Well, Penn State controls their destiny going forward. We have one thing left to do on the show, and that's when we need to crown our Nitwit of the Week. Don't go anywhere.
Don't miss a minute of Nittany Nation Overtime, now also on Apple and Spotify. You're watching Nittany Nation Overtime.
Nitwit of the Week time, and it looks like I've taken the lead and broken the three-way tie with Mark and Neil.
Uh-oh.
Tom Bradley was the only one to pick Penn State, and sorry, Scrap, the guest remains in last place.
He's
Joe,
really mad.
pressure's on.
Okay, I see it now. Yeah, okay. I got something.
All right, Andrew.
All right. Well, I guess I'm going
Ryan,
it's the white,
not Andrew.
Yeah.
Andrew. Well,
I've got 2 of the 3 wins.
I'm sorry, I noticed
doesn't
you
even
guys
know who the host
were
is.
double teaming us.
All right. Big whiteout. Washington struggled on the road. I think Penn State wins this 42-14.
Wow.
42.
Leaving us a lot
Well,
of room.
Andrew, I would. Listen, hey, Washington, is a completely different team than what we saw last year. Transfer portal, guys leaving for pros, coaching changes. But Rodgers is a good quarterback. Played in the SEC. This is a different team on the East Coast. They're playing away from home. So I like Penn State to win this one, 27-20.
Ooh.
Okay. They're not a good team on the road, but they've been getting a little bit better. Have win over USC.
Yeah.
USC has some athletes. I'm going to say, how's Penn State going to regroup here? And I do want to have a quick shout out to the fans. They were tremendous the other day. Now they're going to be tested at 8 o'clock at night for some network that we. I'm going to say Penn State 26, Washington 17.
Neil, that was my number.
Don't land on me, Joe.
That was my number, but I'm gonna. I think the same thing. I think whiteout. We're gonna bounce back. I think the Washington will get a late score there. I think defense will play well. I'm gonna go Penn State 26, Washington 20.
Oh, squeezing me.
All right. Well, it's a primetime kickoff on Peacock. The fans got what they wanted, though. We got the 8 p.m. kickoff, just not against the opponent that we wanted at the beginning of the season. Anyways, we're out of time. Thank you again for watching this edition of Nittany Nation Overtime. We'll be back to recap the whiteout next week.